So good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to request again, if you're sitting at the back, feel free to come in the front for a more engaging discussion. So welcome to our session entitled Interventions to Close the Micronutrient Gap in Secondary Cities. I'm Kesso Gabriel-Verschutphen. I'm the Director of Science at Sight and Life, and I'll be your moderator today. And so over the next hour and a half, we will share insightful presentations and an engaging panel discussion. So our agenda today is structured to take you from a macro perspective, diving deep into the nuances of our food systems in secondary cities. And so to set the scene, we will start with two presentations focused on the role of cities, especially secondary cities, and then we will dive into our panel discussion. So now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Imorn Udomkes-Malay. Thank you, Imorn. She is an esteemed former director of the Institute of Nutrition at Mahidol University, Thailand, and currently an adjunct associate professor at Johns Hopkins University. Imorn, we're honored to have you with us. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to the session. This reminds me about years ago when nutrition was made goal number 2 of Sustainable Development Goals. The nutrition community was so happy. But this was not meant for a silo approach. Nutrition indicators are woven into the fabric of 12 out of 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Working on nutrition will contribute to the achievement of these goals and vice versa. Oh, sorry. Oh, am I okay? This emphasizes the significance of goal number 17, which is partnership. Improved nutrition implies addressing malnutrition in all its forms, and it's connected to hunger eradication, food security achievement, and sustainable agriculture promotion. The key to achieving this goal is to tackle this linkage in a systematic approach across sectors. Hunger, malnutrition, food insecurity hit the hardest in low and middle income countries. The transformation of food system to deliver sustainable, healthy diets offer a promising path ahead. Putting on the hat of someone from low middle income country, I come from Thailand. I can tell you that not so long ago, my country saw the phenomenon of globalization. The change began in urban city area, transforming the way we eat and the way we live. The burst of supermarkets, convenience stores, fast food chains, advanced information technology, and fewer green areas and walking paths has transformed urban lifestyles completely. The city infrastructure expanded, and together with high costs of living and housing, many of the residents was pushed out into the suburbs, leading to the growth of what we call secondary city. In Thailand, we call that satellite area. It's probably similar. Increasingly, these peri-urban areas has greater access to small-scale farming communities, including fruits, vegetables, and freshwater fish. Sometimes you just have to go there to their market, and you can see that you can get some fresh, nice food, not so expensive. Now, from the perspective of nutrition scientists, the modern lifestyle translates to issue of undernutrition, micronutrient deficiency, overweight, obesity, and non-communicable disease in urban population. There's a need to generate demand for good nutrition in secondary cities to influence supply chain and consumers' decision towards healthy diet. Targeting peri-urban areas to intervene and influence both big cities on one end and the farming communities, on the other, is the promising way for the future. Now, the NICE consortium, which you will hear more about throughout this section, is a creative and innovative collaboration with the complementary set of skills and experiences that showcases the power of SDG 17 partnerships. Science Life is passionate on changing the world through science-based solutions and bring on board the expertise of translating nutrition science, building public-private partnership, social business models, social marketing, and behavior change communication. A strength of leadership and teamwork at Science Life is the key to its success. As an export member, I'm pleased to witness this important step of Science Life, that we are here to celebrate the initiative of the NICE consortium, the partnership that matters to low middle-income countries and the world through the achievement of sustainable development goals. Thank you very much for your work. Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, Zurich, Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute, Syngenta Foundation, and Science Life. And thank you everyone here today for your attention. I wish you all a very nice session. Thank you.
Thank you, Morn, and I feel very tall all of a sudden. Thank you also for highlighting the role of partnerships. We'll talk about that later again. And now I would like to welcome Balance Pala. Balance, with her extensive experience as a food system officer at ECLE, will shed light on the key role of secondary cities in our food system. She holds an MBA and has focused her research on sustainability of urban agriculture. Over to you, Balance.
I'm told. Hello, everyone, and happy to be here today. Oh, there we go. Perfect. I hope you've eaten, because I'll be showing you a whole lot of food from all over. So indeed, I'll be focusing my presentation on the role of secondary cities in shaping urban food systems, and I will talk about the City Food, which is a program of Italy, and then I'll take you on a tour to Africa and speak about how we are engaging secondary cities for food systems transformation. And finally, I will focus on how we are closing the nutrition gap through the school food change project. But what are secondary cities, for those who don't know? I think the exact criteria for defining city as secondary it varies from country to country. But in general, secondary cities fall between large metropolitan areas and small towns or villages in terms of population, economic activities, as well as infrastructure. And why do they matter? Maybe you're asking yourself that question. So studies show that in 2025, 60% of the population in cities would have increased by 60%, which is an absolute increase of 2.5 billion people. So what do we do about that? Because then it means that the resources in cities will be under pressure, and that results in food and nutrition insecurity. And 90% of this will be based in Africa and Asia, which are already having challenges in meeting the demand. So what is the potential of secondary cities? We can use them as agricultural hubs and local economic centers, as collection points for crops, supporting local farmers and ensuring food security. And we can also use them as urban-rural linkage. Remember my definition of what secondary city is. It falls between the big city and the rural. So we need to ensure those urban-rural linkages, and we are protecting the environment in so doing. So resilience is possible, but there's a lot of challenges that are being faced by cities, and this includes the secondary cities, and I'll speak about that in detail when we delve into the projects that I'll be talking about. So the challenges that have been identified are inaccessibility to healthy and affordable food, food and nutrition insecurity, poor infrastructure, food safety, food waste, land availability, extreme weather events, and I'm sure you're thinking of other challenges that are being faced in especially low and middle income countries. So just to give you a brief overview of City Food, which is a flagship program of Italy, where we want to help cities become hubs for healthy people, healthy landscapes, and healthy climate. And I'm speaking about this program because the two projects that I'll be focusing on in my presentation are housed within this program. So the City Food program encourages multi-level governance, and within this program, we encompass all food-related projects within different Italy regional offices. And just also to say, for those that do not know Italy, we have offices almost everywhere, but we can talk about that later. But within the City Food program also, we encourage integrated, inclusive food policies, and again, urban-rural linkages, and by that we mean utilizing the secondary cities or leveraging the potential that secondary cities have. And also we encourage or enhance healthy food environments so that people have equal access to safe, nutritious, and sustainable food. And I'm pretty sure you've been waiting to go on a tour with me to Africa, so I'll focus now on our project, which is also within the City Food program, and it's called the AfriFood Links. So AfriFood Links aims to improve food and nutrition security while delivering positive outcomes for climate and environment. It's an EU-funded project coordinated by our Italy Africa. And it is focused in the 5 hub cities in Africa: Kisumu in Kenya, Mbale in Uganda, Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, Tunis in Tunisia, and the city of Cape Town in South Africa. And together with, it invites 10 African cities. There's a whole lot of them. I could name them, or maybe you ask me later, but it includes Arusha, all the middle, mostly all the low middle income country cities, and as well as 5 European sharing cities. And together, we want to encourage these cities to develop innovative tools towards transforming their food systems. So the AfriFood Links take the links approach, and I'll just explain what that means. So the learning, we believe that learning requires collaboration, where different people can learn from each other, and inclusivity, where everybody's voices matter, from communities all the way to decision makers. And we want to encourage a sense of agency and participation from people in different levels. And novelty means taking different perspectives and shaping them into how we want our food systems to look like. And collaboration, just to mention that AfriFood Links is a very huge project, so maybe at some point you will have questions that I may not answer because I don't know what the other work package is doing, but I'll try my best to respond to that. But it's a very huge project that has many partners. So with that, we are encouraging collaboration, and that includes researchers, local government, regional government, local NGOs, and international NGOs. And lastly, on the framework, there is sustainability. And by that, we want to produce solutions or have outcomes that are not only benefiting challenges that we are facing now, but also helping the next or the incoming generation. So the interventions planned within the AfriFood links. And just to mention, it's a fairly new project. It started in 2022. And I'm sure you might be eager to hear the results already, but there's only a few. I'll try to talk about them, but that gives you also an opportunity to follow us on this journey so that you can learn about what we're doing within the AfriFood links. But in essence, the interventions that we plan is to promote shifts to sustainable, healthy diets, to come up with real-world technical experiences towards transforming the food systems, and also inclusive multi-actor governance to empower public officials, small businesses, and communities. And also, we try to localize value addition and inclusive economic participation, and that means including women or people whose voices are often not heard, as well as youth. So what happens when 65 plus cities and 26 partners get together? Remember, I've already mentioned that AfriFood Links is a very big project, and I may not be able to even name all the partners. But what happens is that there will be transformation and resilience through knowledge co-creation, collaborative problem solving, collective action, and shared vision for the future. Food systems have been operating in silos for quite some time, and I think maybe that is why we haven't reached to a point where we want to, because it's very fragmented. But at the end of the day, the goal is we want to see our food systems transformed, we want to see people food secured and nutritionally secured, and yet we work in silos. So what we are trying to do with the AfriFood links is we try to bring everybody together so that we break the silos and at the end of the day achieve the transformation that we're looking for. So this picture was taken in our first consortium meeting in Kisumu, Kenya. As you can see, everybody is so excited about the project and also about the impact that it will make. And you can see there is the framework personified that I was talking about, inclusivity, collaboration, and I'm pretty sure you can even visualize sustainability just from this picture. Again, the other thing that we want to do in the AfriFood links is for people involved to embrace diversity and also to understand what exactly is nutrition. I think most of the time when we speak about nutrition, people already think, oh, is it the westernized way of eating? But without realizing that it can actually be your local food, prepared in the way you know it, but they still be nutritionally balanced. So this year, during the African City Month platform, we gave photographers across the continent of Africa to share the ways in which inhabitants of their city prepare tasty, affordable, and nutritious meals using locally produced ingredients. And the submissions took us through like a culinary journey all over Africa. And we're looking at simple and affordable, nostalgic, vegan, vegetarian. It's a pity I couldn't include all the pictures, but feel free to go through our AfriFood Links website to see them. But with this, we're trying to promote local cuisines and traditional recipes that embody cultural differences, significance, and nutritionally balanced meals. Because what we're trying to teach is you don't have to move away from what you know, but you can still consume nutritional food. And also encourage people to embrace their cultural heritage and education and inspiration in fostering a sense of pride in local culinary traditions. And also, I think just to mention that we're thinking about protecting the environment, and by that means we need to shorten the supply chains, encouraging local buying from the local producers. I know you're excited and hoping to hear more about the AfriFood links, but I'll now move on to how we are closing the gap through our School Food for Change project. But also just to mention what we have done already in the AfriFood links before I move over to the School Food for Change. What has been done this far is that we've collected the data on what the challenges that cities are facing, and most of them resonate with what I've already talked about, inaccessibility to healthy food, food and nutrition insecurity, food safety, infrastructure, no storage, and as well as the school meal the school meals as well. So that's what's been collected thus far. And also we've asked a question, what would the cities that are involved within the Afri-Food Links like to achieve? And so from this information, we will be working towards improving their food systems. So just to speak about our School Food for Change program, it's an EU-funded project and it's focused on the European cities, but we also have replication cities such as Bambilo in Senegal and Kilimani in Mozambique, which we believe could learn from what the European cities are doing, or if not, at least adapt to their context. So we understand that schools can be like a key intervention point to address all health, climate, and social inequality. So that way we are developing innovative, locally relevant solutions to make healthy and sustainable food accessible to all children. And with the aim to empower we empower schools as catalysts for a system and multi-actor change. We want to promote a sustainable and healthy food culture in schools, educate children about healthy food choices, and what we are doing with the replication cities is peer-to-peer learning, where cities can share experiences, challenges, and practices. The School Food for Change takes a triple approach, looking at innovative procurement and whole school food approach, which I'll focus on because that's what Senegal, Bambilo has done. So in the whole school food approach, there's policy and leadership, food and sustainability, education and learning, community and partnership. And here what we're trying to achieve is we want to make a whole school food approach indeed. And we looked at best practices. So I'll just give one example of one of the cities in Europe and compare it with what the other cities in Africa are doing. So the city of Dunkerque, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but in France, uses challenges school children in order, for them to understand what they are eating. So the picture you're seeing over there, they make school canteens fun, and by getting school children engaged in what they are eating. And I'll just move over to Senegal. So Senegal set up a traditional recipe booklet using local partner radio broadcast, and they created agroecological gardens in school, and they also set up school clubs. In doing this, we're trying for children to understand what they are consuming and where their food comes from and how it is prepared, and it helps them make better choices. And I think the other good thing is that these cities involve parents in decision making. Because I think if the children were to eat only in school and they go back home to having normal meals that they used to, then the education would be a little bit pointless. So we try to involve everyone in helping us transition to sustainable food practices. So I just thought I should share some of ways in which we're ensuring effective communication and dissemination in both this projects, and also to ensure outreach for people that are not involved in the project. So the first thing, it's knowing your target audience. So determining who would benefit most from the project results while keeping the specific needs in mind is very important. So us working with different cities in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and everywhere else, we also need to understand the context might differ. So always keeping the audience in mind has been very helpful. And considering various channels, could use infographics, videos, social media, and conferences. And to mention, in Afri-Food Links, we are involving the youth to sort of preach the message of sustainable food practices using their social media platforms, Twitter, TikTok, these platforms that most young people would visit. And also reports maybe would be tailored for researchers or presentations for people that are interested in them, websites for somebody else. But it's important to consider various challenges when you want to communicate and disseminate results to various audiences. and also use the language that the target beneficiaries are comfortable with and can readily understand. And by that, I don't mean just like talking, but also with, like we've seen with what we are doing with the School Food for Change, using pictures. It excites children. You can use songs, it excites them. You can use other things that excite people, different target audience within the food systems. So what are we taking away from these two projects and in general? So I asked the question here, how can secondary cities foster equitable transformations of their food systems? I think the first thing we need to do is embrace diverse perspective for a comprehensive understanding of food systems. In many times, what we do is take the top-down approach, where we impose what we think the people need, instead of firstly listening to their needs and tailoring the challenges that they're facing into interventions and bringing it back to them. So I think it's important for us to first understand the challenges of cities or communities that we are trying to help, and then taking those challenges and coming up with interventions. And the second thing is that we need to translate abstract concepts into real-world solutions that these people that we're trying to help can be able to implement. And lastly, I think we need to move beyond talking about the interventions to actually doing. Thank you for your time and attention. You can reach us at cityfood@italy.org or afrifoodlinks@italy.org, and you can also just search them both, Cityfood or AfriFoodlinks, to keep updated about our projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Balance. Really excellent presentation. We will now move over to Dr. Cornelia Speich, who is a seasoned food scientist and nutritionist. And Cornelia will talk to us about the importance of filling the nutrient gap in secondary cities. Over to you, Cornelia.
Thank you. Let me find out how this works. Good afternoon. Okay, thank you very much and good afternoon. After having heard so many exciting projects in secondary cities around food, around nutrition, let's now try to look also a bit into how does the urban diet differ from the rural one. And I need to say, unfortunately, literature is rather scarce. However, there has been a very interesting study done by researchers in Spain and Belgium, where they were analysing dietary data from the first and the third round of the Tanzania National Panel Survey. And they were collecting this dietary data in 2008-2009 from around 2,000 households, and were then following up these households again 4 years later, when 238 individuals actually moved to an urban setting. So they could follow what are the differences in diet due to rural-urban migration by using a difference in difference estimation analysis. They have showcased that here on these 12 very nice graphs, with on the y-axis the average controlled direct effect of rural-urban migration, always on the top the total effect, and then below split or divided into what's coming from the fact that we are moving out from a farming environment, what's coming from the changes in income, and what's coming from price changes of food, I mean price volatility, etc., and the combination of the three. And the researchers could actually show that there was no effect on dietary diversity from moving to a rural to an urban household. Neither there was any effect for meat, fish and dairy consumption, nor for oils and fats. However, as expected, as we are always talking about, there has been a shift away from traditional cereals, from maize, cassava, other starchy foods like millet, sorghum, etc., towards, of course, a higher consumption of sugar products, sweetened products, snacks, meals consumed out of home, as well as also bread, etc. In another study by the University of Helsinki, food frequency data has been analysed for 550 adolescent girls in central Mozambique with the secondary or with the city of Quilimane and then the rural surroundings and district towns, etc. Anthropometrics and serum and whole blood indicators were collected, and the researchers first did a principal component analysis to understand how is the urban diet defined and how is the rural diet defined. And based on this food frequency data, they found that the urban diet is characterized by more bread and fats intake, while the rural diet was surprisingly defined or characterized by a more frequent meat intake, although most probably in very small amounts, and of course a higher vegetable intake. The researchers then did a multivariate statistics model and could show that the urban bread and fats diet was positively associated with BMI Z-scores, with middle upper arm circumference, with triceps skin fold, as well as with blood hemoglobin. However, it was negatively associated with serum folate concentrations. For the rural meat and vegetables diet, they found actually a negative association with BMI Z-scores, triceps skin fold, and MUAC. However, they found a positive association, given the higher meat intake, most probably, of serum ferritin. So these researchers concluded that while the urban bread and fats diet has been positively or negatively associated with really strong micronutrients biomarkers indices, the rural-urban diet has only been positively associated. So that moving from a rural to an urban area could actually also pose people at risk of micronutrient deficiencies. However, of course, I mentioned the literature is controversial. There are not many studies on that. A recent study in Burkina Faso found a bit different results, saying that I need to check, serum ferritin and retinol was increased or was higher, was better status among people with an urban diet than with a traditional staple diet. However, what we would really like to showcase is for both, of course, rural, but also urban diet. It's micronutrient efficiencies in all settings are complex and diverse and need to be looked at from very different lenses, from a more macroscopic lens, increasing availability, also including, of course, soil quality there to really have the right micronutrient content in our food. Then micronutrient accessibility, including infrastructure to make food available even to the poorest in a city, marketing, and then, of course, affordability, what has been a huge topic during this conference as well. But then we should not forget about also the more microscopic interactions. So micronutrient bioavailability, there are different micronutrients influencing its others' absorption bioavailability. Preparation methodologies can have an influence on how a nutrient is taken up into the body. And then, of course, the physiological factors that are determining the bioavailability in the intestine by, for example, influencing pH, but then also the absorption from the intestine into the enterocytes and then further into all the cells where these nutrients are really required. And of course, requirements differ among the life cycle depending on growth, on controlled, uncontrolled losses, etc. So with the mainly SDC-funded Nutrition in City Ecosystems project, the public-private consortium is really trying to link understanding, awareness, demand for good nutrition, whatever good nutrition is, but for for taking the adequate amounts of micronutrients, etc. We've actually also the supply of these products, the supply of nutritious foods that have been produced based on agroecological principles even. And of course, then also food systems governance is an important fact on that, and sharing of best practices is key, I would say. Because I would really say multi-sectoral collaboration is one of the key components to bring or to close the micronutrient gap, to transform food systems, etc. It's not that one silo or one sector can solve these problems alone. And I would also really like to emphasize that diverse diets will be at the base of these transitions. And I would like to showcase you a short example from 2 rounds of 3 days weight food records we conducted in the rural surroundings of a secondary city in Malawi some years ago. And we calculated the food variety score by adding up all the different food items that the children actually consumed within the 3 days. And we ended up with median values of, or with medium food items consumed within 3 days of 17, 19, but depending on the season, of course. And maybe if we reflect, many of us have maybe already eaten 17 different food items today, and dinner is still ahead. So with that, let me conclude that we really see that the issue of micronutrient gaps needs to be looked at with different lenses, from a more macroscopic food system lens and with a more microscopic physiological factors lens. And then, as already the etiology of micronutrient deficiencies is multifaceted and complex, also the solutions are surely not easy, but diverse and complex. And yes, let's advocate for multi-sectoral collaboration, mutual understanding, and support diverse diets wherever we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cornelia, for highlighting the complexity behind micronutrient deficiencies and also how that reflects in the interventions. So now we will actually see a recorded message from Dr. Kibiriga Anisat, the esteemed mayor of Rusizi, Rwanda. So he couldn't join us in person, but he recorded a wonderful message for us.
Rwanda, a comprehensive micronutrient deficiency action plan. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, today I stand before you as Dr. Anisat Kibiriga, the mayor of Rusizi district in the Western province of Rwanda, to discuss a crucial initiative that holds the potential to transform lives and create a bright, healthier future for our nation. We gather here to address a pressing issue, the Nutrition Action Plan, aimed at fighting micronutrient nutrition deficiencies in districts across our world. Rwanda, under the leadership of our President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, has steadily committed itself to battle against malnutrition. Over the 5 years, the government of Rwanda, along with our invariable development partners, has controlled substantial resources to enhance access to nourishing foods, elevate awareness about their vital role in our well-being. Our journey has led us to the adoption of district plan to eliminate malnutrition, a plan that places a local leadership and ownership of its core. Ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of this plan lies in its ability to strengthen the bond between local authorities and the various stakeholders working together, improving nutrition, such as the project called NICE, project which is under Sighted Life Rwanda. Its unit runs under a common result framework in collaboration with the key ministries responsible for health, education, gender, local government. Our shared objective is to increase the production of nutrition, food, and promote the consumption of animal resources, announcing a health future for all Rwandans. A central aspect of our plan is the regular assessment and tracking of nutrition, targeting children under 5 years, pregnant women, and lacting mothers. Our dedicated institutions conduct a public engagement campaign to promote health-seeking behavior, encompassing areas such as disease prevention and health promotion. Activities range from prenatal care to deworming for children, family planning, early childhood development, distribution of macronutrients like vitamin A, and crucial educating our population on key health issues. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the distribution of micronutrient products, the Ministry of Health take a vital role in distribution or delivering this product to the health centers, which in turn pass them to the community health workers. These workers, the backbone of our community health, distribute them during monthly child growth, monitoring, and promotion activities. Regarding the schools, in our schools, we recognize unfortunate presence of hunger among some of our students and prevalence of micronutrient deficiency, particularly anemia. In response to this disease, or in response to this, we do different initiatives, or we have introduced different initiatives, including 1 cup of milk per child program, dairy milk in schools, and encouraging balanced food consumption at home. We have introduced also the innovations like kitchen gardens for all families and nutrition clubs where parents, especially mothers, come together to discuss the importance of our balanced diet. Ladies and gentlemen, the NICE project stands as catalyst for transformative change across the entire food system in our country, addressing this issue of micronutrition deficiencies through the supply of nutritious food, including fish and horticulture products. Furthermore, it seeks to inspire behavior change in our community members through social marketing campaign, encouraging the adoption of health foods, the preparation of balanced diet, and the increased consumption of animal resources food. Considering the holistic impact of this NICE project on our food system, improving nutrition and the livelihood of our population, I, as the mayor of Rusizi district, where NICE project have already touched thousands of the lives, wholeheartedly recommended the scale up of this project or of these initiatives in other districts of country. We must uphold the principle of Tujanemo, or no one left behind, ensuring that every Rwandan reaps the benefit of our collective commitment to our health-strong nation. Before closing, let us remember that this journey is not only about addressing the deficiencies, but also about fostering a bright, more prosperous Rwanda for generations to come. Thank you for your attention, and may we all work hand in hand toward health and more nourishing future for our world. Tujanemo. Thank you so much.
What a fantastic speech. Dr. Anisit has been helping us wholeheartedly in scaling up the NICE project in Rwanda. So now we're moving over to our panel session. So I'm going to invite Dr. Cornelia to join on stage, and Dr. Stratton. So by the way, we were hoping to have country representation, so from Bangladesh, Rwanda, and Kenya. So Stratton, please join on stage. Stratton Habumugisha, so he's a seasoned professional in food systems, environment, and sustainable development. He holds a double master's in agricultural economics and environment and international development. And his diverse experience spans across the private sector, public sectors, including central and local government. And then I am very pleased to invite Elizabeth Imbo. Elizabeth, please join us. Elizabeth is the country project manager for the NICE project in Kenya, and she aligns her work with the Syngenta Foundation in East Africa. She has a strong foundation in nutrition and over a decade dedicated to food security, nutrition, and livelihoods. So thank you to all of you for being here. And so the theme of the panel will revolve around three core areas: the selection of value chains, enhancing knowledge and demand for healthy diets, and strategies on how to reach urban consumers. So before we dive into the panel, I'd just quickly like to give you an overview of the NICE project. So as Cornelia explained, the aim of the project is to make agroecologically produced foods more available in secondary cities. And it's a consortium from Site and Life, Swiss Tropical Health Institute, the Syngenta Foundation, and ETH. And each partner brings their expertise to this project. So from the supply chain all the way to the demand and to the governance component and so on. So all right, so I will start with Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, you have been part of the NICE project for quite some time now. Can you tell us how you selected the food value chains to focus on within the project and what elements you thought were most important?
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. It's exciting to give our experiences on what we have done under the NICE project. So it's good that Professor and I think the speakers who've come ahead of us have given a proper foundation on what the NICE project is about. So I will go straight into the action. I think we have seen the science, so I'll get into the practical bit of it. So in terms of selecting the value chains, we did have a foundation document or a framework that is from IFAD, and it outlines a set of criteria which we adopted for the selection of our value chains. And amongst those included nutrition potential, income potential, market potential, climate and environmental potential. So whatever value chain you're selecting, what impact is it having on the environment? And then we had our own, including agroecology. I think we've had one of our speakers talk about agroecology. So the NICE project is quite keen on addressing agroecological issues. And then also government priorities. So once we had that criteria in place, then we went to do a secondary literature review of available documents on what value chains or what information around value chains is available in the various areas that we are going to implement the project. After that, we now went to a stage where we were calling stakeholders. I think we have talked about collaboration and partnership strongly as part of this project. So we call stakeholders quite diverse, from government departments, civil society organizations, private sector players, farmers, processors, and we went into a deep dive to just understand these value chains. What are the bottlenecks? What are the opportunities? And in which areas can we plug into our nutrition interventions? And then, of course, ultimately we scored the value chains. And the value chains that were scoring the highest, I think in the context of Kenya, we had about 5 value chains. So African leafy vegetables, poultry, fish, orange flesh sweet potatoes, and groundnuts were the value chains that we selected. And so that's how we finally settled on those as part of the project. Just a brief overview of the kind of interventions that we were planning. So they were not necessarily at a specific stage in the value chain, but some were around input. So for example, the orange flesh sweet potatoes, we were keen on ensuring that we were getting clean vines for the farmers. We were having interventions that were targeted at production, to really emphasizing on good agronomic practices and focusing on the local standards. We're looking at post-harvest handling and food safety. I think that has also been mentioned. And finally, just doing consumer awareness, because part of it is also letting people know that this food is nutritious. This is where you can find it. We've talked about preparations and how that influences nutrient availability. So brief of some of the scope of interventions that we were having in the NEST project. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sounds like it was a comprehensive exercise. And Stratton, I believe that you have gone through a similar exercise in Rwanda. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how the local knowledge was also used within that process?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone. So we had a similar approach following the IFAD guidelines, and very well established the tools and computerized the systems, just allowing the right decision, but always the context, local context matters. And also it is aligned with the nice project approach. It is context-based approach. We had to consider the grassroots, what was there. Reason why, during the selection value chain, you had the diversified participation. People from agricultural sector who understands very well farming systems. For sustainability purpose, we had to invite to include people dealing with environment. For those who are not familiar with Rwanda, it's a hilly and mountainous country, where now, while farming, you have to cater for issues related to environment, especially soil erosion. And again, you had also to bring on board people with a background in health and nutrition, so that we don't leave any aspect behind. So with that now, we could have micro consideration, like a social economic desire, how the trends in the production and consumption are just locally progressing. With that now, as my colleague said, using IFAD criteria, we now could have a very good score. But at the end of the day, not the score will now drive the production process. And now we had to complement with the local knowledge. Surprisingly, just let me use an interesting story. Among suggested value chains, we had now to balance between carrots and mushrooms, because there were past other criteria: market potential, nutrition potential, and agroecology production potential. But we had the people just who flagged that now, people from health sector flagged that now they were planning long planning campaign to address the question of vitamin A deficiency. With that fact that was supposed by the audience, now carrots value chain has won the mushroom based on that local knowledge. So we do value the local knowledge, and not only just for decision making, but also the ownership of the entire processes. With that, with the ownership, it's a kind of assurance of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Stratton. I like that ownership is a segue for sustainability. And thank you, Cornelia, for stepping in on behalf of Bangladesh and sharing the experience of Bangladesh. Could you perhaps tell us a bit about how conversations with various stakeholders, especially those in the local markets, how did they inform the selection of value chains in Bangladesh?
Thank you very much, Keso. And yes, as you can see, I'm having a bit less insight into Bangladesh than my colleagues here who are really doing the hard work in the field. I'm just following up that all a bit from far. But what I can tell is from Bangladesh, we had really close collaboration, conversation with the market committees, as well as in one of the cities, also with the District Nutrition Coordination Committee and the city-level multi-sectoral nutrition coordination committee that is also established in Bangladesh. So already a lot of multi-sectoral stakeholders, let's say, collaborated in this discussion of selecting the value chains that NICE should focus on through its development, through its implementation. And the market committees, of course, they could see and could give insights on all the microtrends, on the local setup and also the local demand. And maybe one point still to highlight is that, of course, in these market committees, they were also focusing that there is an increasing demand of foreign vegetables. And of course, in a project bringing together demand and supply, we were, of course, more interested in locally produced vegetables, so on local vegetables, on a diversification, but especially in a country like Bangladesh with that many different varieties of that many foods or fruits and vegetables. It's not like Northern Europe, it's really everything basically is there. So we were really focusing on local value chains.
Thank you. Thank you, Cornelia. And so now I'd like us to move more to the demand and the generation of demand for these value chains. And again, I'll start with you, Stratton, this time. So in consumer surveys that were conducted in Rwanda for the NICE project, did you learn anything surprising about what the consumers buy or know about healthy diets? And how did that information shape your knowledge for the demand generation campaigns?
Yeah, thank you. To ensure that the local communities is now adopting the healthier food and also are just making some effort to cater for balanced diet, we had now to start a journey to induce behavior change towards adoption of nutritious food. The starting point was just consumer research to gather aspiration or insight of communities, including farmers, of course, how they behave, what are the existing knowledge. As I said, it is a context-based approach, and how they allocate resources towards purchasing nutritious food, and where do they purchase. And when it comes now to preparation, how is the division of labor at the household? Maybe for people who are not familiar with the developing word, maybe you can just feel that is simple. It's equal division, but it is not. Sometimes we find a different situation. So we needed just to understand what was the situation there. And as reflecting to your point, surprisingly, we found that the knowledge is there. They know how the balance that looks like. Starchy food, proteins, source of vitamins. Again, what surprised us, how now they take decision. Knowledge is there, but it is not used. So with that now, while, because we needed now to pack the social marketing strategy, we understood that there was more effort needed about the functional capacity, awareness, nutrition literacy. And it's now different activation sessions were more focusing on how they can now leverage that knowledge to and transform the knowledge into practical and allocating resources to adopt nutritious food. And again, we found that being city population, they could again use TVs, radios, just to have some basic education about nutrition literacy. And with that now, during the design of the social marketing campaign also, those some audio message were used because we were sure that some of them can just pick from those audio now to at least to adopt healthier food and also preparation of balanced diet.
Thank you, Stratton. Elizabeth, I'm wondering, did you have a similar experience of the consumers actually knowing what a healthy diet looked like at first? Do you want to comment on that?
Thanks, Keso. Indeed, that is what we experience. I mean, Rwanda and Kenya are very close, but of course with differences. But I can tell you that, yes, there's a lot of awareness of what food needs to be consumed. I think one of the things that we realized was the problem was access, and this access is really a lot to do with infrastructure. So how close, how far are people from the market? Are the roads there, you know? So those are some of the things that were really hindering people from getting the food they need, regardless of their knowledge. But the other thing was also the cost of food. And I think in the last 2 to 3 years post, after COVID, I mean, we are really yet to recover from it. I mean, the cost of food has gone up. The global economic situation is, you know, is shifting. The geopolitics is affecting, you know, distribution of food. I mean, talk about the wheat and cooking oil. These are things that are really affecting people. So in as much as we know, or let me say our communities know what needs to be consumed, I think that these existing barriers that are making it very difficult for them to get the food. And then just about production also, I mean, sometimes, and this is what we're doing within the NICE project, is really to encourage production of local nutritious foods. And based on, I think, the first question I talked about, some of the value chains, they're really the local, you know, crops and local value chains. And so the point is, how do we give you the knowledge to enhance the production of what you already have? So if it's the vegetables, how do you set up your local, you know, home garden so that you can get your fresh vegetables, you know, from your farm without really having to go very far? So that was really one of the ways in which we are trying to address the issue about access, although the situation and people's knowledge is there, it's just that people sometimes cannot access, or the cost is really beyond their reach. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Cornelia, you were the one who spoke a bit more about micronutrients and nutrients and filling the nutrient gap. Is there a way to ensure that people are getting the nutrients that they require, and what metrics can be put in place to show that these behaviors that we've been talking about, that they're really leading to healthy diets?
Yeah, I think it's a very tough question, but I think, as Stratton mentioned before, it's really this functional capacity. Around the countries, we realize people understand the concept, but then decision-making is a different story. And also from protein to really then seeing what is rich in protein already there, or especially the vegetables, understanding what are the micronutrients in the vegetables, etc., is already a tough point. So I think really it's cooking demonstrations, for example, to give better examples of how something can be produced, because as I mentioned before, then taking the right combinations, taking a balanced diet is the first step, but it can, for the micronutrients, it can even go further and further. So I think it's really the functional capacity is the thing to work on. And I mean, yeah, this has in many countries always been an issue. I mean, we are constantly changing our curricula in many European countries because we always try to improve the functional capacity of our students. So this takes time. Different approaches or different approaches can be taken and need to be tested, but I think functional capacity is key.
Thank you, Cornelia. And I'd like to move to our final round of questions around reaching urban consumers and talking a little bit about public procurement as well. So Stratton, again, how have grants influenced the role of women and youth in the food market, especially within NICE? And were there any unexpected results from this initiative?
Yeah, thank you. We talked about functional capacity, but as the mayor from Rwanda said, no one left behind. We have another class that has not ticked the all box. Yes, with the next project, you consider vulnerable population in terms of food security. Those are people who cannot afford just before moving to the education. And with the next projects, we are now considered to move to vulnerability, food system vulnerability assessment to understand who are a vulnerable population in terms of food security, and just and also to understand what to do with them. Because always just I'm emphasizing on the context-based approach. And the findings revealed that women and youth majority groups were just lagging behind others. Maybe why women? Yes, the history just goes with the settings in developing countries, where the question of women's subordination is defined. Not only the lower education, but access to basics, including the factors of production, land, inputs, and so on. With that, their role is just limited to household level, subsistence agriculture. And they share the constraint with the youth who are also struggling to access to basic inputs. So with that next project to intervene, we had now to step in with the kind of not functional but technical and resource assistance, the small grant scheme, you said it. With the small grant scheme was just to help them to increase their operational scale so that they can, first of all, satisfy the household nutrition and also become agricultural market players. With that now was a kind of improving their livelihood, and when the livelihood is improved, now the next move is improving nutrition. So with that, we have seen change because people now have moved from one level to another one. As Nalo asked, unexpected result. In Rwanda, there's socioeconomic classification where people are classified based on income and livelihood. And you have seen the local government revisiting the social classification because people were now declaring their income and then moving from one category to another one, which is recorded as one of success story for the next project during the first 2 years of implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stratton. So let's move a bit more quickly. So maybe one final question for you, Elizabeth. There's been a bit of work on school meal programs in Kenya. So how have these school meal programs in Kenya impacted the health of the community and changed the food market landscape through NICE?
Thank you, Keso. Yes, in the NICE project, part of, and just to build on what Stratton is talking about, targeting the most vulnerable, we see the school as one of the avenues through which we can target vulnerable children, especially the children below the age of 5 years. For obvious reasons, I think they are more at risk of malnutrition, and therefore the school is a good entry point. But it's also a way in which we can also ensure that we are keeping them in school. Now, we do have government guidelines that have outlined what we need to do in terms of school feeding. Unfortunately, I think when we look at the landscape, I think that what we call the most vulnerable, so is, in the most northern region where it's more arid and semi-arid, and maybe in the informal settlements, especially in the bigger cities. So in our areas, we are now trying to really look at how best do we target these children. And so the public procurement, then what we are doing is working with the parents, the school itself, and also the local suppliers to see that we are able to put together a model that enables, one, the farmers or the suppliers to be able to provide food in the school, but secondly, that parents are also part of the decision making when it comes to the children the food for the children, and also that there's government commitment to this, because it is one thing to have guidelines, but these guidelines have to be financed for them to work. So indeed, we are seeing a situation where more children are able to get hot meals, nutritious meals in schools. And definitely this is keeping them in school, especially for the children below the age of 5. I mean, by the time it is 12, 1 o'clock, they need to go home. But if they have a hot meal and they're able to stay a little longer, then it's even better for them. But also, we are doing local sourcing, meaning that it's your local farmer, it's the local women. I mean, we're talking about women empowerment, so that they're able to supply the schools. They don't have to, take their foods or their produce further from their local region. So through local sourcing, then you're also able to build the local economy. Yeah, thank you.
Really good. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to all of our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. So now we have some more time for questions, online questions and in-person questions. So if you have a question, come forward, introduce yourself, and yeah.
Thank you. I'm Hubert Zirungawagao from Cote d'Ivoire, but also sharing the roots with Strato. I'm from Rwanda as well, and I'm very pleased to see the work that NICE is doing in East Africa. Connecting the micronutrient, second city, healthy diet, I think it's a very, very complicated task, and I really commend your work. But talking about micronutrient and healthy foods, also one think about mostly vegetables and fruits. And we are talking about secondary cities where people don't necessarily farm. And I want you to maybe elaborate and take it a little bit deeper to the farmers and producers, especially in the aspect of waste, because sometimes taking food from that far remote areas of Africa to those secondary school cities can be challenging. I want just to know if your program is maybe tackling aspects of like maybe conservation and processing, especially when it comes about really getting the good fresh vegetables and fruits to the market in those secondary scale. I can imagine can be very challenging. Have you supporting those producers in terms of processing and conservation? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to, Stratton?
Yeah. Thank you so much. As you said, we are just adopting a food system approach. And within a food system approach, there is inside the value chain. Reflecting to your point on micronutrients lying into fruits and vegetables, just to confirm that in Rwanda, among selected value chain, you have also, we have horticulture, we have carrots, we have onions, passion fruits, and tomatoes. Because we have been considering several factors, but also nutrition potential to contribute to improve nutrition. And looking at sustainability, the agroecological, which means we cater for environment. And now, what we do within a value chain, we do support entrepreneurs. On conservation, our fish beneficiaries now, we are now supporting them to access to cold infrastructure. And this comes from the value chain analysis. As I said before, it is a context-based approach. After selection of value chain, the next step was just value chain analysis to understand what could be the bottlenecks, the challenges or opportunities to leverage. So we tried to provide the answer, to provide intervention based on what was there. So conservation was one of approach to prevent post-harvest losses in fish value chain and also conservation, of course. And when it comes to processing, now we have been now encouraging, because as a project we are not starting a new initiative, but we are now inspiring entrepreneurs to advance their initiative so that the project can step in. It's like working with them, not working for them. So with the processing now in another city, Rusizi, where the mayor was speaking from, now we are now supporting initiative to transform passion fruits into passion juice. So it is a journey that started 2 years ago, and we still have several miles to run. We still have more years, and they can't forget again to reflect on waste management. During the last peer learning now, the peer learning, it's a level of horizontal sharing of knowledge. Now, our partners now reflected on having a policy on waste management, and because the local government was represented, now what the project is doing is now gathering the concerned partners so that they can now address the question of waste management in the city, because it was flagged as one of a barrier. Because when what the project cannot answer, advocacy is now looked at the next best alternative.
Thank you, Stratton. So yes, please, Catherine, go ahead, and then we'll move to one online question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Kessel, and thanks for this wonderful panel and the nice panel, the nice project. Sorry, I guess you get that all the time. Not the first person. No, very interesting. I would be particularly interested in, you were talking about multi-stakeholder approaches, and I think we talk about that quite often in city governance projects. And I would just be interested to hear your take on how do we ensure that we really get, that we not only get the people on the different stakeholders on the table, but how do we really get them to engage and to hear their voice and to have them have an agency? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's not even a very easy question to answer. I mean, it's taken us 2 years, and I can tell you that it keeps evolving all the time. What we are seeing working is, and this was the very basis for us, is that we needed to get the government, especially the city leadership, on board, because they sort of are like the foundation, all right, although everyone has equal power within the platforms. And so once we have the government on board and allow them to include other members, because often we see that the government wants to drive this agenda. And when we look at the food systems wholesomely, it's not a sector agenda. It's health, it's agriculture, it's trade, it's the schools themselves. I mean, so what we did is first get the government on board, and at least this is from the Kenya perspective, and then allow for the membership to be drawn from the other private sector players, development agencies, as well as farmers and women groups. And not to say that is 100%, because I think 2 years, not 2 years, I mean, just a year ago when we had a change of government because of elections, then it all changed and we had to start all over again. But what we saw is that once we have the buy-in, Then we have the private sector, because they're also the very important players, in this case, the processors and the vendors. We have been able to set up a platform that is functional, all right? And we are hoping that we want to get them to a point where we are having a charter. So once we have that charter in place, then we visualize that this should be able to, to get them to a a pathway in which they see progress and they see agency and in ways in which they can now, easily perform and influence decisions around the food systems within the cities. I hope that sort of answers. It is still work in progress. It keeps evolving, but at least we are seeing that the formation is existing and it's, visionary. Thank you.
Cornelia, would you like to comment?
No, I see it absolutely from that perspective. And of course, for this multi-sectoral collaboration, we cannot directly measure it. It's difficult to give a monetary value to multi-sectoral collaboration. So these are all factors that need to be considered as well. And then it also depends on power balances within the platform and on personal engagement or personal drive of some of the partners. I think we see that all over the place in these food councils that many cities in different countries have. It's also very much dependent on somebody that can drive it and can give this energy and this drive to others interested in doing so.
So we do have one online question. I think some of it was already answered, but still. And it's from Apollo, who is supposed to be on the panel. So he's asking, how can city authorities be engaged within these multi-sectoral platforms, specifically city authorities? Who would like to start? Stratton, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. The mayor who was speaking now, same for other city officials. First of all, before engagement as a project, you had now to show what was intended. And having their buy-in, as my colleague was saying, was one of our initial steps. First of all, a project like NICE or any other development project is just complementing with the government, is first of all and with the government initiative and also complementing with what the government is supposed to do. So it's a matter of just bargaining, explaining, and just bringing them on board. Because if, for example, the government has now initiated a development to the population and it found a second arm, additional resources. For us, any official, any government administrator can support that initiative. And engaging them from not just to bring like well-matured products or just process, but engaging them from the beginning. With that now, during at the beginning of the project, we are now even not only for the administration introduction of the project, we had just to sit together with them to explain what was the new product, the so-called NICE, that was coming. And now they could now identify what could be the cross-cutting areas with the government program. And for every annual reporting, we consider just taking into consideration the existing government development initiative. And among value chain selection, we consider the government buy-in because always the government has the priorities. And we do always just invite them in different activities, and with that now, they become, once they are in, we means just a friend forever.
Maybe quickly to add, I think also here the mayors also need to, or the city governments also need to learn from their peers. So sharing best practices, sharing experiences, it's really one of the solutions to work on many issues, and conferences like that are a possibility. But we shouldn't forget that many political people are then not attending, of course, conferences like that, but it's really important to also have peer learning exchanges, etc., between these decision makers.
Thank you. I think we've reached the end of our session, so thank you so much for your attention and for joining. And yeah, let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you so much.